Hi, Wayne Bennett here again with ECRM Talks, and today I am very happy to have us speak with Alastair Dorward, who is the Chief Brand Officer of Amyris, and we're going to learn more about that very shortly. But in preparation of today's conversation, it was very interesting to me that industrial chemistry's use of petroleum accounts for about 14% of greenhouse gas emissions. However, 60% of those inputs can be produced biologically. And, with a focus on making the scarce abundant and thinking about reimagining what's possible in this age of a very sustainably focused environment that we live in, whether it's the retailers making some big goals, KPIs around net zero carbon emissions, or consumers looking to buy and lean into sustainable products. I thought it'd be very interesting to have Alastair here talk with us today about what you do and why that matters. And before we do that, Alastair, I do also want to thank you for involving your company in our upcoming Sustainability Week taking place the week of June 20th. But let's get into it. So, Alastair, thanks for being here. Tell me,
Sure.
who is Amyris and what do you do?
Wayne, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to chat to you today. So Amyris is the world's leading synthetic biology company. So what on earth is synthetic biology? We are here to really change the way the world manufactures ingredients that are used in household products and beauty and food throughout the world. And synthetic biology is at the frontier of sustainability. It is the new way of making things. So you touched on petroleum-based manufacturing, which has all the issues associated with it. What we have done and perfected over the course of the last 15 years or so is to use yeast and fermentation as the way of making rare ingredients more abundant. And so we are using basically cells of yeast to manufacture rare ingredients. And I'll tell you more about how we do that. So we have hundreds of PhDs who have developed a capability of programming yeast cells to make very specific molecules, and then to do so not at a lab level, but at a full industrial level that you can manufacture consumer products from as a foundation. So this is something that we started with a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where we found a way of making malaria vaccines more affordable and more pure for families throughout Africa. That was the initial breakthrough. And over the course of the last several years, we have perfected this approach. And we now have 13 molecules that we have commercialized from lab to full industrial scale across a range of products that are, some of which we sell to major players throughout the world. And currently there's more than 20,000 products in the marketplace, touching 200 million consumers that use the foundation ingredients that we manufacture. But over the last several years, we have been building a portfolio of our own brands that have been built on these rare molecules. And that's really the heart of what we do. Synthetic biology is the future of manufacturing. And, when we talk to retailers, they are looking for this vision of how to break through, because historically there's always been a sacrifice, right? Either in quality or in cost that have prevented sustainable innovation from becoming truly a replacement for tried and true petroleum-based ingredients. And through Amyris's lab to market approach, which now can commercialize these rare ingredients, then we talk about no compromise, right? There is no compromise on cost. There's no compromise on efficacy. In fact, in most cases, these ingredients are purer than any other form available. And clearly from a sustainability point of view, this is a breakthrough. So we start with our base ingredient as sugarcane, grown in Brazil sustainably, and we have Bon Sucrose certification for all of our base materials. We feed that sugarcane feedstock to the yeast strains that we have programmed. And as an output, we have these pure molecules. So that's what we do. We are the world's leaders in synthetic biology.
Alastair, that's fascinating and really impressive when you come to think about what you guys are focused in on to change the curve of sustainability. I mean, really very interesting. You mentioned a little bit about the retailers, and I know you do have some consumer brands that I want to get into in a minute that leverage a lot of the technology. But can you share with me a little bit more about your perspective about why this is important again for the retailer? And maybe just some perspectives in general about where the retailers are today with their journey and against sustainability and where you can really fit in and help.
You bet. So I would say that there's, ultimately this is about the consumer, right? And the consumer is expecting and demanding. And as each generation emerges, I have 4 kids in there aged 17 to 21, right? Mm-hmm. And that generation, Gen Z, is demanding products and brands that have the highest level of sustainability, values that are aligned with our own values. So it really starts with the consumer. And with each generation is becoming more discerning. And therefore, retailers who are looking to the next generation of consumer, looking to embrace and attract the latest generation, must adapt to have offerings, across all parts of the store, right? And if you think about, I've spent half of my career in the food industry. So much change started in the food industry, right? The transition from organic, the reduction of the number of ingredients, shortening the supply chain. So I think food is where it has all started. But as other parts of the store have become impacted, then consumers are expecting better for you throughout the store. Early in my career, I had the privilege of being the founding CEO of Method. And with Method, we were able to redefine green cleaning. And I think that's one of the opportunities here, that for every segment of consumer consumption has an opportunity to drive the next wave of sustainability. And there remain certain segments of categories which remain kind of underdeveloped, and the consumer is likely disappointed with the opportunity there. And that's really where Amyris fits in. We identify molecules that can fundamentally change a category and can change the consumer proposition and deliver something that is a better experience, deliver something that solves a fundamental problem, and at the same time is sustainable. That was one of my lessons with Method. We used, great design to be something that was desirable. And it was almost a Trojan horse for a sustainable ingredient, right? We made it easy for consumers to adopt a better lifestyle. And that's really what we are doing at Amyris. Every brand and every product delivers something that's superior from a consumer experience. Yep. And in doing so, we're also bringing a sustainable format. And we find that's the way to, from a consumer point of view, that's really how this no compromise approach we have developed can move the needle on categories. You don't want to be preaching to the converted. You want to be really appealing to the broadest consumer base possible. And that's really the magic of the approach we have here at Amyris. And that's the value we think we can bring to retailers.
Yep. No, Alastair, I think that's great. And as you're talking, it seems to me the takeaway there very simply is sustainability is customer centricity.
Simply that. And it's one of the core themes that is just escalating. And, it's not just something a retailer has to check the box that this is, something that they do as part of what their overall offering. It has to be so fundamental. And if you don't start working on it now, then you'll have missed the boat, because it takes time to plan. It takes time to understand how the category is going to evolve. And, a retailer that doesn't have sustainability at the core of its strategy across all product segments and all, consumer needs is likely going to miss out on some fundamental market share. in future years. So for us, this is a way to support our retailers with their thorniest problems and categories which have been historically difficult to bring sustainability. And that's the solution that Amyris brings.
Mm-hmm. Alastair, I wanted to, I believe you were at the recent COP26 meeting, right? Your company was there.
I had the privilege of being in Glasgow, in my home country of Scotland.
Absolutely.
And it was an extraordinary experience.
That's great. And I just was hoping maybe you can share. So for the audience that may view this, and in particular, those merchants that may have not been there, and many probably were not, right?
Yeah.
But at the merchant level, the buyer level, the ones that put your consumer products into the store, is there, from your viewpoint, one or two takeaways from COP26 that you think it's important for them to know at the category manager merchant level?
Yeah. I think I'll re-emphasize a theme I touched on earlier, that I have tracked sustainability as an issue for the last 25 years. And I've tracked how, the different cohorts of consumers, how different political dimensions consider sustainability. And it has gone from something that is fringe, something that requires sacrifice, even kind of somewhat militant in their approach to sustainable issues, and almost anti-growth, right? That is maybe a couple of decades ago, the green movement might have been associated with almost an anti-business approach. And I've been a student of the works of Bill McDonough and Michael Brungart, who wrote the book Cradle to Cradle, which is the seminal work in sustainability. And really at COP26, we saw that this whole shift towards the mainstream demand from every consumer group for sustainability is that it is a broad movement. And I was left very encouraged that the most powerful speakers, the most compelling visionaries for the future were not folks in their 40s and 50s, have been in the industry for several decades. The hope came from that Gen Z generation that spoke with expertise, with passion, with insistency for change. And this wave is not about sacrifice. It is how they operate. They want to consume in a better way. They want to make choices about brands that are based on their values and from manufacturers and retail partners that embrace sustainability. This is now part of the mainstream, and it is no longer about guilt and sacrifice. It has to be built into every aspect of the consumer offering. So I'm being pretty consistent in my theme here. It is about consumer centricity, and that was loud and clear at COP26 in Glasgow.
Yeah, Alastair, thank you for that. And, being in the mix of the spear of the conversation, and obviously those takeaways, I think, are very resounding with the category merchants that I think we want to really convey to, that this is really here to stay. So let's talk a little bit about your consumer brand business, your consumer product portfolio. I know you have Olika, Purecane, Pipette. Maybe you can talk a little bit about each one of those brands and why they're important in terms of this conversation and the sustainability mission.
You bet. So Amyris actually has 9 brands that are in market, from Biossance, which is our first brand, to JVN Hair and Rose Inks. We have some brands that are in more premium channels such as Sephora, but I'm responsible for brands that are really more accessible in food, drug, mass channels. And these indeed are Pipette, Purecane, and Olika. Let me pick on Purecane as a first example. And this is a fascinating breakthrough. Let's set the stage in the sugar category for a moment. There's something like 7 in 10 deaths in the US are related to sugar consumption, whether it's health issues such as diabetes, heart disease. Sugar plays such a significant role in our overall health care burden. And there are 1 in 3 pre-diabetic people. 1 in 3 American population is pre-diabetic. It's staggering. We think about the pandemic we've gone through. We have a ongoing health crisis that relates to sugar. So merchants typically have a love-hate relationship with the category. It also has significant planetary burden in that it takes 9 gallons of water to make 1 teaspoon of sugar. 9 gallons of water. So it's not surprising that 80% of American consumers are trying to reduce their sugar consumption. However, only 20% of consumers would consider using a sweetener. So there's a fundamental market failure. Despite lots of innovation over the course of the last 50 years of developing so many artificial sweeteners, but unfortunately the taste has not delivered, and there's also some health concerns associated with artificial sweeteners. So for most consumers, sweeteners are off the table, and that is where Amyris's synthetic biology approach has come through. We've identified in the stevia plant, there's a particular molecule called Reb-M that is 350 times sweeter than sugar and has exactly the taste profile. There's something like 40 steviol glucosides in the stevia plant. And when you're extracting the sweetener from stevia, you can't get a lot of the more mass versions of the glucosides that have bitter aftertastes. But this very rare 0.1% of the stevia plant has this perfect profile. And yet, historically, it's impossible to source. And that's where our synthetic biology approach has come in. We're able to replicate that molecule from the stevia plant and produce it at a 99% purity level at a cost structure that's affordable. And this Reb-M from sugarcane is our breakthrough with pure cane. And we have formulated a range of baking products and tabletop sweeteners such as this shameless plug number one for pure cane that just delivers on taste in a way that is an absolute breakthrough. And we've been one of the things about Amyris is we're digital first. Everything we launch is online. Mm-hmm. And for the last couple of years, we've been kind of working on pure cane direct to consumer and with Amazon, and have got just some incredible results. Mm-hmm. And we'll be actually launching pure cane for the first time this year with partner retailers. So mm-hmm. That's an example, I hope, of a category where sustainability has been a problem, where health mm-hmm. has been a problem, mm-hmm. and where through our precision fermentation approach, we've got a breakthrough that can really deliver a wellness opportunity for the consumer that has never been exposed before, and bring innovation to a category. I mean, sugar is not a category where you think about that's the heartland of opportunity. But I love categories where the consumer is underserved. Sure. That is where the breakthrough lies. And that's an example of our approach at work.
That's great. Very interesting. Alastair, do you want to talk at all about Olika or Pipette?
Love to. Thanks for that opportunity. So Pipette is a baby and family care brand that is based on one of our first molecules that we've developed. And that molecule is called squalane. Now, squalane has been used in the beauty industry for about 100 years. It's not a new molecule. It's one that has been developed particularly in Japanese and Korean beauty. But historically, this molecule has been harvested from shark livers, right? So this is possibly the least sustainable of ingredients. And once again, we saw this as an opportunity. How do we replicate this molecule using our synthetic biology approach to make it no compromise? So with no sustainable issues, it comes from sustainably grown sugarcane. How do we do it at cost and purity that has never been seen before? So we've developed squalane as our core ingredient, and it is a core ingredient and hero in our Biossance brand, which is one of the most successful beauty brands in the marketplace. But it's also the core in our Pipette brand. And I'll tell you a little story about an insight around about what's going on with that. There is, when babies are born and in utero, they're protected by something called the vernix caseosa. And that's not a Harry Potter spell. It's Latin for cheesy varnish. And that's the substance. If you recall the parents out there, you may remember newborns come out with this kind of layer that's a protection for in uterus and also at newborn, and it is the most important foundation for the growth of the microbiome in infants, and it protects the newborn skin, and is one of the most important elements that pediatricians are looking at. And yet it's something that is in Western culture cleaned off immediately. Other cultures celebrate the vernix as something that's absolutely critical. And it's interesting, as a species, we're one of the only mammals to have this feature. So the vernix, in terms of baby care, is fundamental to a fundamental insight. And the primary lipid in the vernix is squalane. And therefore, that's the story why Pipette as a brand is based on squalane, which is basically Mother Nature's miracle moisturizer.
The cheesy sauce.
The cheesy varnish, right?
The cheesy varnish, right.
Cheesy varnish. So Pipette is the only brand in the baby category that is based on Mother Nature's miracle molecule. And we use it in all of our wash products. We use it in all of our treatment products, whether it's for diaper rash or for eczema. And it is just inherently perfectly designed for newborn. And we've also found that it's a great, we've extended into sun care. It's a perfect blend with a mineral sun care, a healthy mineral sun care to go on without that kind of chalky approach. So we've extended squalane in our Pipette line, and we now have one of the most popular family sunscreens in the marketplace, again, based on the squalane. So these are some of the incredible things you can develop when you've got this technology to develop unique molecules and tell stories in categories that are just breakthrough. So we love the vernix story. It's a classic example of understanding underserved categories where they may have been petroleum based in the past, and now we've got this purely sustainable point. So we're bringing innovation to the baby care category.
I love it. Alastair, I want to ask you a question. So obviously capitalizing on some very important consumer trends around sustainability, meeting consumer unmet needs, taking the advantage of the science and the technology and the IP that Amyris has to make innovation meaningful. So I'm curious, when you put all the matrix together, can you share with me one or two really good partnerships, retail partnerships, where you're kind of leveraging all of this together?
I think that's a great question. And so I would say that, our Sephora partnership for our beauty brands is a great example of a key way to take learnings from our first digital launches and really understand how to apply that in a retail component. So Sephora has been an important partner for our Biossance launches, for JVN, and for Rose Inc. So that for our premium beauty brands, Sephora has been an important partner. And I can share that as we speak, at the other end of the price point, the Alika brand, which is our breakthrough in hand sanitizing, taking a very functional and medicinal approach historically to a category, to one that is desirable. This is a elegant form that clips on backpacks or purses, diaper bags, and is refillable. We have pouches that allow a sustainable approach with a hydration point of view. So we're really reinventing the hand sanitizer category, which has obviously been storied over the last couple of years, and trying to make it just desirable, something that you actually want to have accessible. We've talked to a lot of parents who, send their kids to school, and maybe that hand sanitizer with a pump is in their school backpack, but probably never sees the light of day, right? We want to use design, great fragrance. This one is our mint citrus. if you design something to be elegant, to have a great product experience, it gets used more. And so that's the insight behind Olika. And we are, as we speak, launching this in every Walmart brick and mortar store and making this an accessible part across the country at a below $5 price point. And because of the refill approach, it's actually cheaper per dose or per use than a branded pump hand sanitizer. So we have found partnerships with Walmart. We found partnerships with Sephora, and we have many other great discussions underway with leaders in drug. We've recently launched the pipette brand at Walgreens on a national basis. So we do see that we want to have key flagship partnerships. Target is also an important partner of our pipette brand. So we do see that for retailers that are serious about sustainability, we want to partner with them, give opportunities to be first to market, co-develop particular fragrances or offerings with them, so that we can be a good partner and understand their consumer needs, their guest needs, in order to bring innovation to segments that really matter for them. And that's something which I fundamentally believe, that great brands are built in partnership with visionary merchants.
Yep, Alastair, that's great. I have two more questions. Any white space opportunity where you see going in terms of the portfolio? And I'm not looking for any hidden secrets, but do you see a broad white space opportunity in terms of where you may go next?
You know, there's so many opportunities ahead, and you know, one of the things that we're excited by is the whole cannabinoid space.
I was going to ask, yeah. So,
you know, and so CBD has been somewhat overexposed, and I'm sure many merchants who are listening in are maybe rolling their eyes. Gosh, not another CBD story. And we recognize that there's a lot of issues historically with a hemp-derived product, a lot of impurities, a lot of lack of clarity about what's in there, as well as a myriad of regulatory issues associated with you know, anything that's hemp derived. So we have been looking at the minor cannabinoid space and looking at non-CBD parts. So CBG, for example, is a very interesting minor cannabinoid, very hard to extract on a consistent basis from the hemp plant. And so once again, using our synthetic biology approach, we have replicated the molecule, again, from sugarcane. So this is not a there's no possibility of THC or any other impurities getting in here. And we've found that there's some very interesting anti-inflammatory benefits when you actually combine CBG with squalene. Squalene is a great carrier. It allows bioavailability. It's such a light oil, and through the follicular, through the hair follicles, it can actually access lower areas of the skin and penetrate the stratum corneum. And so we're seeing very interesting anti-inflammatory benefits that have a whole host of skincare opportunities for us that we're looking at exploring. And this is a new frontier. This is a way to look at you know, taking cannabinoids in a way that avoids all the impurities and all the kind of tainting with the hemp industries. We're trying to leapfrog where the industry has been historically, with a lot of mom and pop players. Some are less reputable, have less sort of science approach, and we've got some very interesting opportunities ahead to bring wellness from you know, cannabinoids that are not from hemp.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by your response in terms of that as an opportunity, and that's exactly where I was going when you were talking earlier about similar type of innovation with molecule development. So definitely. So Alastair, I guess I have one closing question, and maybe sort of a little bit more downstream, your vision for the future, maybe 5-10 years from now. What will things look like from a sustainability perspective?
Look, I think this is the decade of whether you call it synthetic biology or precision fermentation, this is the decade where what we are doing goes from an interesting sort of innovation to mainstream. I think we have the opportunity of using sort of fermentation-based approaches to be the primary way we make things. The more we can leave behind petroleum-based manufacturing, the more we can leave behind any plant-based issues that have, heavy land use or water use. The future is water light and land light manufacturing using little molecules as the future factory, little yeast cells. That is the future of how things will be made in the future. We believe that, as you said earlier, up to 60% of consumer products can be made this way, whether it is in personal care, whether it's in household, whether it's in fragrance. And as you saw at Purecane, there's ways of entering certain food areas there, and clearly plant-based foods are a major theme for the grocery members that we're addressing here. So we see more of this happening, and this to become a mainstream approach. And we want the whole industry to thrive. And we're privileged to be the leader. We've been doing this a long time. And it's really the commercialization that is critical. You can do this, if you can do this in a lab, that's interesting. But if you're actually doing this at major industrial volume, so you're able to support a Walmart scaled launch, then that is how things get done at scale, and this becomes mainstream. So that's our hope, that these little yeast cells are the source of our future manufacturing base, and we leave behind petroleum as a thing of the past. It becomes petroleum base becomes kind of the smoking of the remember when
of the consumer products industry.
Right. That's why we're doing this every day. And I go back to the scientists, the hundreds of PhDs that have been working for the last 15 years doing this. We're, as brand marketeers and partners with retailers, we're standing on the shoulders of some amazing giants who have this breakthrough technology, and it's a privilege to work with them every day to make this possible for our consumers and our retail partners.
Yep. Alastair, I want to conclude here and thank you for your time and conversation. It was a very insightful conversation for me, way beyond what I thought I would expect today. And I'm sure for the audience of the buyers and the merchants, maybe just another opportunity to go beyond just, synthetic biology and what that really means, and the contributions that you're making and attempting to make in this environment that we're in, with the focus on sustainability and consumer demand and better for you products. So I appreciate your time today. I know we'll be seeing you again in June at our Sustainability Week program. We appreciate your involvement and support. And again, it was a pleasure talking, and thank you for your time, and continue to the great work.
Wayne, thank you so much. The door is always open to your merchants to have discussions about how Amyris can help the retail partners that are so important to us. Looking forward to these conversations.
Thank you, Alastair.